Welcome to TrekTrav, I am Trav, and this is Doctor Who's special one, The Star Beast, a review. I'm not going to recap the episode, but I'm going to talk about things in it, so if you haven't seen the episode, make sure to go and watch it and come back. Subscribe, like, and comment. Little tiny David Tennant. So, I'm one of those people who, when I heard that David Tennant was coming back to do Doctor Who, I was a bit like, oh, we're going backwards? Is that the choice we're going to make? And I've been into Doctor Who since the new series started in 2005. I actually enjoyed pretty much every series and every Doctor. I don't think that Jodie Whittaker's episodes were particularly fantastic, but I liked Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I certainly felt going into this like it was sort of going, yeah, we know the show got a bit dodgy. And I don't think it got dodgy at all. I think it changed in tone and style, but I feel like it didn't do anything wrong. I think they could have worked a bit more on the writing of the story. So, with this episode, going into it, knowing they're bringing back David Tennant, bringing back Catherine Tate, who are arguably the most popular version of the show, I was very sort of trepidatious about how they were going to do it without sort of being negative to the previous Doctors. And this episode with Russell T Davies talks about this being sort of your standard Doctor Who episode. And that's how much it very much felt like an older Doctor Who story with new special effects. I did feel like Catherine Tate's acting wasn't quite as good as it had been, or maybe she made some choices that weren't the same as what I expected. Finny, her daughter, is fantastic. I enjoyed the character. I liked that it was named Rose. I think David Tennant bringing up that he was a woman and the fact that his psychic paper had failed to catch up were fun. I loved seeing all the little sonic screwdriver moments where he's drawing like a screen for himself, and where he uses it to go through walls. I think that they sort of nailed it. Looked amazing. The sets, the lighting, the camera work, Rachel Talalay, the director, coming back for this episode, and I was genuinely like, look, this looks really, really good. The story itself is from an old comic from, I think, the 70s, and I know the Beak the Meat was, so I already knew that, spoilers, Beak the Meat was a bad guy. The actual puppet / costume for Beak the Meat looked fantastic. And what I was actually really taken aback by was how good the CGI was later on when they switched to the angrier version of the character. It looked genuinely, like, really good. Like, you could tell it was CGI, but it looked real. But the standout for this episode, I think the music was a bit off. I felt like the music, like, it was Murray Gold, and I get maybe he's trying something new because it's a new era of Doctor Who. There was a lot of stuff about this that actually gave me a feeling of like the Star Wars shows, in that everything looked really clean. Everything looked really sort of perfectly disheveled. Like the universe, I don't know how to describe it. In the original Star Wars, the universe looked used, and it actually looked used. Whereas when you watch newer Star Wars set in a similar timeline, everything's styled to look used, and it looks used. This is the same thing. Even when we get to things like Unit and the way it was, it felt very much like this was all sort of sleek, new, cool. The only thing being, I don't know what the alien race is called, the big red bug-eyed things. I've forgotten at this very moment. But they weren't very good, but I know that they're from the comic. I'm really hoping that we get a bit more. Like, I've heard that this next special is like the weirdest thing they've ever done, and the last special is crazy. This one, I'm hoping that this is just sort of the beginning. Once again, I feel like going backward wasn't my personal favourite way to go. I think the storyline was very average. I think Miriam Margolyes's Beat the Meat was brilliant. I love Miriam. She's just the best. If you want to go watch clips of Miriam, go watch clips of Miriam. She's great. David Tennant, I think David Tennant was good on it. I do wish that, look, he is playing a much more, and it feels like this, a much more reserved version of like the 10th and the 14th meant to be different, but he plays this as being much older. He talks about being these different versions of himself. I don't know. It's a weird thing for me because I was a huge fan of Peter Capaldi and I'd moved on from David Tennant. So when you're going back to David Tennant, it just feels a little bit like, oh, okay. It just doesn't work for me. And the episode was okay. It was good. I enjoyed it, but something felt off. When we got to the TARDIS, it was the same thing as we'd seen the pictures of the reveal of the TARDIS earlier. And I thought, oh, that looks okay. It looks okay. And then seeing it in the show, I'm going, it actually looks really boring. Like it's very flat. It's very white. And then for some reason, the console's got all the old bits in it. And I love how David Tennant runs around the TARDIS. I think that space to give him that sort of energy really suits his Doctor. I think Catherine Tate spilling the coffee on the TARDIS is a little bit off. Look, I knew that was going to happen as soon as she entered the TARDIS. Talking about Wilf, and obviously Bernard Cribbins passed away while they were filming these specials, so it was really sort of I thought we were going to see him, but we didn't. But yeah. Overall, seeing Sylvia again, seeing Donna's husband, it being back in that world, but it not quite feeling like that world was a little bit jarring. But overall, I would probably give this like a 6 out of 10 compared to other Doctor Who episodes. It wasn't particularly special. I don't like the fact that I have to watch it on Disney Plus because they've taken it away from ABC in Australia, which has aired the show for the previous 60 years. So it was a little bit of a letdown in terms of I had to go to Disney Plus to watch this show. It was simulcast with the BBC, so that's okay. But otherwise, that's my thoughts on this episode. If you'd like to leave your thoughts of this episode in the comments, like or subscribe. Come back for next week. I'll be reviewing them again. Once again, this isn't a negative review. It's just a review. 6 out of 10. Thank you for watching. I've been TrekTrav, and see you for Doctor Who again next week on Sunday afternoons in Australia.